We'll start the show in just a second, but first I want to tell you about today's sponsors. Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. SteadyMD lets you maintain a meaningful, long-lasting relationship with a primary care physician who you can meet with anytime over phone or video chat. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. Visit steadymd.com/Pakman to get started. We actually have some good news to start with today. Obviously, this is a context of lots of really bad news, but it seems as though Dr. Anthony Fauci's completely outrageous and adversarial relationship with the White House is going to be repaired the day that President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in, just 6.5 weeks from now, because we've learned that Joe Biden spoke to Dr. Fauci and has first and foremost confirmed that Dr. Fauci, Joe Biden wants Dr. Fauci to stay in his role at the NIH as the head, essentially the head of fighting pandemics, as the case effectively is in the United States. And in addition to this, Joe Biden has offered Dr. Anthony Fauci the role of chief medical advisor to the White House. And Dr. Fauci says that he accepted this offer on the spot. Here is video of Anthony Fauci being interviewed on NBC by Savannah Guthrie. They also spoke about a 100-day masking campaign, which Joe Biden has already asked Dr. Fauci about, and I want to talk about that as well. So let's take a look at this clip.
Joe Biden said in an interview yesterday on his inauguration, he's going to ask Americans to wear a mask for 100 days. He said just 100 days, not forever. Is that enough, or do you feel like that might put an artificial time limit on how long people may need to be wearing masks?
No, he didn't mean it that way. I spoke to him about that. What he wants, he just wants to get, and it's a good idea, uniform. He's saying, hey, folks, trust me, everybody for 100 days. Now, it might be that after that, we still are going to need it, but he just wants it, everybody for a commitment for 100 days. And I discussed that with him, and I told him I thought that was a good idea.
He also said when he spoke to you, he asked you to continue in your role, which you've had under 6 presidents, but also to serve as his chief medical advisor. Will you do that? Did you say yes?
Oh, absolutely. I said yes right on the spot. Yeah.
We have to hope that the combination of the vaccine starting to roll out, although likely a bit of a slower rollout than we would like, combined with sanity entering the White House, combined with hopefully better treatments becoming available, we are hoping that this will give us a much better March than we are likely to see in January and February. And then hopefully this will give us a better second quarter of 2021 than we are likely to see in the first quarter of 2021. And then hopefully we will have a better second half of 2021 than what the first half will be. But let's talk briefly about this 100-day mask thing. I talked about this yesterday during a live stream a little bit. This is already being framed as some kind of right-wing authoritarian nightmare police state where Joe Biden is deploying federal troops to force people to wear masks. Now, I want to remind you, the authoritarian nightmare is Trump. And Trump's leaving. It was Trump who used the military for domestic law enforcement and sent the military into protests. That was authoritarian. It's Trump who claims he won an election that he lost. That's authoritarian. It's Trump who has been attacking a free press and attacking individual journalists. That's authoritarian, and I could go on. Joe Biden can't actually affect a mask mandate. Don't forget this. When we hear about Joe Biden will ask all Americans to wear a mask, that's literally what it will be. He will ask Americans to wear a mask. He can also and will ask governors to push mask wearing and put in place mask mandates, at least from the standpoint of commerce and businesses. Joe Biden cannot legally put in place a mask mandate. So everybody's saying the mask mandate he will put in is authoritarian. He will not, because he cannot put in place a mask mandate. Now, lots of people will ignore it. Hopefully many won't, and we'll be able to work together to reduce the number of cases and the number of deaths as we start to vaccinate people, hopefully as soon as a week from today. But the big story is Dr. Fauci staying on and getting a bigger role, Government living in reality is going to come back. We really need that desperately. We also need to be revering the doctors that are spending their careers trying to keep people healthy. Under Trump, Dr. Fauci started to need full-time armed security for himself and for his family. This is not normal. That's insanity. There are very sick people in this country that made armed security a necessity for Dr. Fauci. We have to reverse that now. Now, you might be wondering, why would Joe Biden do this? Isn't Joe Biden worried and jealous that Anthony Fauci might end up with a higher approval rating than Joe Biden? And the answer is no, we're not worried about that. Joe Biden is not going to determine which doctors he hires based on whether they have higher or lower approvals. Remember Donald Trump complaining at a rally and at press briefings that somehow Fauci has a higher approval rating than Trump has. We've had terrible luck, really. It's really Dr. Fauci's bad luck when we needed him the most. And not that we didn't need him during Ebola, not that we didn't need Fauci during HIV and SARS. We did. But when we needed Fauci the most during a global 100-year pandemic, we have a president who doesn't listen to Fauci and actually attacks Fauci to such a degree that Fauci needs armed security. It's truly insane. The good news is that at least this aspect of the insanity of this administration is going to be reversed. It's important to keep an eye on the things that administrations do in the waning days of a presidency. Barack Obama did many things in the last days of his presidency. George W. Bush also did. And one of the things that the outgoing Trump administration did is on December 1st, they rolled out their new citizenship test for new prospective U.S. citizens. Why did we need a new test? Well, we didn't. But the Trump administration put one in place. And not only is it filled with right-wing bias, it's also riddled with hilarious factual errors, legal errors, historical errors. They can't do anything right in spirit nor by the letter. So for those who aren't familiar with this test, anyone not born a citizen needs to pass an oral test to become a citizen, to become naturalized. 20 questions, you have to pass 12. And that's a 60% correct answer rate. The new test is filled with questions about things that most people born in the U.S. as citizens don't even know. Specific questions about Alexander Hamilton, the Trump administration has put in. Questions about the 10th Amendment, which most people know nothing about. And it's clear that the idea is to just make it more difficult to become a naturalized citizen. And in order to do so, you have to sort of buy into a bunch of right-wing Trumpian propaganda. Some of them actually say, these new questions, that the correct answer is something that is just factually wrong. Here's an example. Question: who does a U.S. senator represent? The study guide says the correct answer is citizens of the state. Now, this might seem obvious, but senators represent all people in a state. It includes permanent residents, as an example. Now, this is clearly an anti-immigration type of answer. Senators don't represent illegals. Now, in some ways, senators do represent undocumented immigrants, but even without arguing that, the correct answer can't be all citizens, because permanent residents here legally with green cards have representation from senators. So it's factually wrong. Here's another wacky question from Trump's new citizenship test. What are 3 rights of everyone living in the United States? And you can choose from freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition the government, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms. Those would all be acceptable. Missing is the right to a lawyer, the right to due process, the right to equal protection, the right to freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Those are not listed as acceptable answers. The right to bear arms, which is listed, is not absolute. Felons, as an example, are limited in their right to bear arms, but the right to due process is completely missing. It's a factual joke. And then one more for you. What is the supreme law of the land? The study guide says the answer is the U.S. Constitution. This is utterly insane. The law of the land includes the Constitution, all laws, statutes, and treaties that we have. And that's even in the Constitution. The Constitution says that the full law includes statutes, laws, and treaties. Trump couldn't even pass this test. Let me put it a different way even. Trump couldn't pass the bogus test they've created, even as they delineate the right answers. And Trump also couldn't pass the test that we had up until December 1st. This is really horrible. And it's sort of it encapsulates so much of what is wrong about the perspective that is espoused by this administration. Now, the good news is this is something that Joe Biden should relatively quickly be able to fix once he takes office. And I hope that he will. Let me know your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman, and we'll be back right after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
What if you could read 10 books in just one sitting? That's exactly what one of my favorite apps lets you do. It's called Blinkist. And what they do is take thousands of popular nonfiction books. They condense them down into text or audio that you can consume in 15 minutes. Blinkist makes sure that you're getting all of the important core insights from each book. So it's perfect for exploring a book you otherwise wouldn't have time for. If there's a full book you're thinking about buying, you can use Blinkist to get a sample first. Just think how much you can enrich yourself by being able to soak up an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Remember that the David Pakman Show is mostly funded by individuals just like you. They're no different than you. It's people exactly like you who grab a membership at joinpakman.com. You get the daily commercial-free audio and video streams of the show, as well as the daily bonus show, the members-only newsletter, and so many other things. Sign up at joinpakman.com. Big news overnight. Donald Trump's personal lawyer, 76-year-old Rudy Giuliani, has tested positive for coronavirus. Donald Trump confirming the diagnosis via Twitter yesterday, saying, quote, Rudy Giuliani, by far the greatest mayor in the history of New York City, and who has been working tirelessly exposing the most corrupt election by far in the history of the United States, has tested positive for the China virus. Back to calling it the China virus. Get better soon, Rudy. We will carry on. Now, of course, there is nothing surprising about this. Rudy Giuliani has been flying daily all over the country for weeks, sitting in rooms with 100 or more different people every day, many without masks, all to promote bogus voter fraud conspiracies. The only surprising thing about Rudy and coronavirus is it took this long for Rudy to test positive. So there's a few elements to this story. First is the personal health element. Rudy's 76. At minimum, he's overweight. I don't know if he would be considered obese. Unsure about other comorbidities. So question one is, how serious of a case will Rudy have? And as with everybody, I hope he gets to experience a full and speedy recovery. Many people do not. That's question one. Part two, how many people did Rudy Giuliani expose or give the virus to? In the days prior to the positive test, he was all over different hearings without a mask around lawmakers from different states, also not wearing masks, next to another Trump attorney, Jenna Ellis, also without a mask. So he may be another super spreader. Arizona's legislature has shut down because they were all exposed by Rudy Giuliani just a few days ago. That's part number two. Part number three. How does this impact Trump's continued voter fraud campaign? Will they keep having hearings and filing bogus legal complaints with other attorneys working for them? Will Rudy work from home? Who knows? Rudy, as of last night, had been checked into a hospital for treatment. And then fourth, and this is just amazing, the number of people convinced that this is actually part of the conspiracy is stunning. I jokingly tweeted yesterday, and anyone who knows me knows it's obvious satire. I posted to Twitter a fake conspiratorial post. Again, obviously joking. I said, quote, Doesn't anybody find it a little suspicious that just as Rudy was traveling all over the country, ready to expose affidavits that would overturn the election, he gets COVID and now has to stop exposing the fraud? It's too convenient. Now, that was a joke. And somehow this tweet got caught in some kind of Twitter trending topics thing. And people were agreeing with me. People responded, yeah, it is a bit of a stretch. A woman named Marlene responded, yep, and I don't believe Trump had it either. A woman named Debbie suggested Rudy doesn't really have COVID, but that, quote, I wonder if Trump sidelined him because of all the losing. It got so bad that I had to post a follow-up tweet where I said, holy, you know what? I can't believe I have to add this, but my post is satire, you lunatics. So that's very, very bad. And of course, we wish Rudy the best and a full recovery. And at the same time, we hope that he will drop the bogus voter fraud nonsense because it's been so corrosive to democracy. Rudy Giuliani positive for coronavirus and in the hospital. And we now must discuss Georgia, which will determine who ends up controlling the Senate beyond January 20th. Let's go to that next. So this is super important for us to understand and think about. We briefly spoke about it on a bonus show last week, but now that we're closer to these Georgia Senate runoff elections, let's dive in even further. There is a contingent of Trumpists in Georgia who are thinking of boycotting the special Senate runoff elections and staying home. Why are they thinking of doing that? Because they're mad that as they see it, as Donald Trump has been telling them, the Georgia Republican governor and Georgia Secretary of State haven't fought hard enough to give Trump the election, even though Joe Biden won it. OK, that's even though Joe Biden won and Trump lost. There are Republicans who are thinking of boycotting the Senate runoffs because they think Brian Kemp and the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, should have done more to steal the election for Donald Trump. That's some Trumpists. And they're saying boycott the January 5th Senate elections because we want to punish Georgia Republicans for doing that. Other Trumpist Republicans are thinking of boycotting the January 5 Senate election because they believe it's rigged. And just like it was rigged against Trump, they believe that they voted for Trump in large numbers. But because of the rigging they lost, they likewise believe if we vote on January 5, it also is rigged. So we're going to boycott in protest. There's two different sides to this boycott. Now, the Republican Party realizes that if they keep calling it rigged, they might inadvertently encourage people not to vote, which will make them lose both of these Senate elections, which would be great for us, but bad for them. So at his rally on Saturday night in Georgia, yes, there are rallies and we will get to clips later, Donald Trump was at the same time attacking the system in Georgia as rigged, claiming he really won Georgia, attacking Governor Brian Kemp, attacking the Secretary of State, but also saying, and by the way, we really have to vote in Georgia. Sort of an incoherent message. If it's all rigged and fake and stolen, why is it that people should vote? Isn't it going to happen again? Now, I've received a ton of emails from our viewers saying, David, you should participate in this. Start playing up that it was rigged to trick and encourage Republicans into not voting. It would be really great because control of the Senate is riding on this. You should encourage Republicans to boycott, get them to stay home, and then John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock will win. Here's my thought on this. For more than a decade on this program, I've been calling for and advocating for and encouraging more civic engagement, which starts with voting. Everyone should vote has been my perspective and my mantra for years. I believe in total, the country is better off with more people having a stake, feeling involved. And by the way, I think it's better for the progressive movement to have higher turnout. Republicans know that they do better by suppressing the vote. They have a different view. I don't want that. I want more voting and I want more engagement. So it would be immoral for me to now say, Republicans, you should stay home because it was rigged, especially when it wasn't rigged, other than their own voter suppression, which failed to actually give them the win. So it would be morally wrong and antithetical to my beliefs to start encouraging Republican voters not to vote. Now, that being said, if Republicans as a strategy want to encourage their own voters to boycott the election, I'm not going to get in the way. This is sort of like I would never wish death on anyone. but I could at the same time recognize that sometimes the world is better off with certain people not around. I would never hope that someone becomes ill or dies, but I can still feel okay saying this was a bad person that did bad things. We're better with them not doing those things anymore. Similarly, I believe in voting. I believe in civic engagement. I believe in participation in democracy. I would never encourage otherwise. And I recognize if Republicans are telling Republicans not to vote, it might lead to Republicans losing the Senate, and that would be a very good thing for the country. So I'm not going to get in the way. If you really did believe it was rigged, which it's not in favor of Democrats in Georgia. In Georgia, you have the opposite. You have Republicans who have purged voter rolls, shut down polling places, and all of that stuff. But if you really believed it was rigged and that your vote didn't matter, it follows logically that you might decide to boycott the election. Now, in the meantime, let's not be stupid. Let's phone bank. Let's door knock safely. Let's register to vote. Let's request absentee ballots, and let's try to win these two races on January 5th. So we're going to take a quick break. After the break, I will have clips for you from yesterday's debate between Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock. It's wacky, and you can find some of those clips on our Instagram as well, which is David Pakman Show on Instagram. Find me on Instagram at david.pakman as well.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
If you are anything like me, you probably aren't thrilled with the idea of going into a doctor's office right now. And thankfully, there's a practical and affordable way to take control of your health and get personalized care from the comfort of your home. It's a service called SteadyMD. They're one of our sponsors. You take a quiz, you get matched with a licensed primary care physician who understands your health needs. You have a 1-hour video call with your new doctor. You establish a meaningful relationship with them. And after that, your doctor is available to you anytime by text, phone, or video chat. This is not a random doctor on call. Each doctor at SteadyMD has a limited number of patients, so they actually have time to listen to you. You get the personal attention that you deserve. They can do almost everything an in-person doctor can do: perform medical evaluations, talk to you about health concerns, send prescriptions to your home or local pharmacy, and anything they can't do online, they'll quickly set you up with an in-person provider to do, things like blood tests as an example. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. There are so many practical advantages to using SteadyMD for primary care, and it's also so much more affordable. Go to steadymd.com/Pakman to take the free quiz, see which doctor is right for you. I took their quiz. They matched me with a doctor who specializes in my particular health needs and situation. The doctor they gave me is a really perfect fit for me and my medical needs. There's no risk, no commitment to get started. Just click the link right underneath this video.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I have some absolutely must-see clips for you today. Remember that, as we talked about before the break, some of the 2020 elections aren't over. The presidential election is over. Trump lost. But the Senate is still to be determined by 2 runoff elections, both in Georgia, both on January 5th. The deadline for registering to vote in Georgia is today online and today by mail. Must be postmarked by today, December 7th. The deadline for absentee ballot requests is January 1. Early voting starts Monday, December 14th, a week from today. One of those races is incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue against Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. Now, David Perdue will not be debating Jon Ossoff because Jon Ossoff completely humiliated David Perdue in the last debate. Here is a reminder of that.
Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic if you hadn't been fending off multiple federal investigations for insider trading. It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. It's that you're attacking the health of the people that you represent.
That was absolutely brutal. I considered actually calling and reporting a murder when I saw that. I've never seen anything like that. And Purdue bailed on all future debates because it was such a disaster. But the other race did have a debate yesterday. Unelected incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler, one of the most corrupt senators in the Senate right now, has a challenger in Raphael Warnock. They debated last night and Loeffler appeared to malfunction, going into dozens of repetitions of the same 4 or 5 phrases. It was bizarre. She looked like a robot. She didn't move and had this weird sideways smirk on her face. She mostly refused to even look at her opponent, and she repeated the same things over and over and over again. No matter the question, no matter the topic, Loeffler would just repeat one of the 4 or 5 things that she said throughout the entire hour's debate, which I covered live for you on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Now, one of our viewers who goes by the name Gaslit Citizen on Twitter put this together at my request. You're going to see that no matter the topic, Kelly Loeffler keeps repeating radical liberal Raphael Warnock, radical liberal, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer. The American dream, the American dream, the American dream. I grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm. These are all unique instances from the debate. Nothing is repeated here. Take a look.
New Deal. I'm fighting for the Chuck Schumer. No, Chuck Schumer's, Chuck Schumer's, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi to live the American dream, 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 the American dream. And the agent of change is my opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, radical liberal Raphael Warnock. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock, 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 radical liberal Raphael Warnock is their agent of change.
But all those things that you're warning about would not be happening, presumably, with President Trump as president. So it almost sounds as though you're conceding that that part of it has been settled, and now it's important for the Republicans to keep the majority in the Senate to have a divided government.
I was born and raised on a farm. I was born and raised on a farm. I was born and raised on a farm. I grew up working in the fields. I grew up working in the fields. I waitressed my way through school. I waitressed my way through high school and college. And I was the first in my family to graduate from college.
It really is bizarre. And her use of this phrase, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, clearly something she thinks will help her with the Georgia electorate. And it may. I mean, it's possible that she's doing this because she can't actually justify staying in the Senate based on anything she's done. So she's just attacking her opponent. Here are some instances of that. And check this out, wrapping it up in a bow with socialism at the end.
Democrats want to fundamentally change America, and the agent of change is my opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock. My opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock has partnered with Stacey Abrams. My opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, would be a rubber stamp, and my opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, is his agent of change. You've just heard radical liberal Raphael Warnock, but my opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, is a socialist from radical liberal Raphael Warnock, or we can take the path of socialism that radical liberal Raphael Warnock wants to bring to our country. They want to radically change our country, and their agent of change is radical liberal Raphael Warnock. They want to fundamentally change America, and radical liberal Raphael Warnock is their agent of change. Look, you've just heard radical liberal Raphael Warnock lie about my record.
I have never seen anything like this, other than it did remind me of the 2016 Republican primary debate, where Marco Rubio's software seemed to similarly glitch, and Chris Christie called him out on it. Here's a flashback to 2016 when Rubio seemed unable to repeat anything other than that same answer about Barack Obama knows exactly what he's doing. Take a look at this.
And let's dispel once and for all with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. But I would add this, let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Facts. Here's the bottom line. This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
The memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the reason why this campaign is so important.
To the Gang of Eight bill first.
Well, here's the response. I think Anyone who believes that Barack Obama isn't doing what he's doing on purpose doesn't understand what we're dealing with here. Okay, this is a president who is trying to change this country.
Yeah. So that was a very strange event. Yesterday's debate was completely surreal. So earlier yesterday, you had John Ossoff asking questions of an empty podium because his opponent, David Perdue, refuses to debate him after Ossoff crushed him. And then you have Kelly Loeffler just stuck on repeat, repeating the same things. They both need to be removed. And Kelly Loeffler also continuing to refuse to accept that Donald Trump won the election. Check out how she handled that question. And there's a little glitch in this clip, which I apologize for.
Yeah, my question is actually pretty simple. Yes or no, Senator Loeffler, did Donald Trump lose the election?
You know, President Trump has every right to use every legal recourse available. In our own state, we've seen time and again that we have investigations that need to be completed.
So as you can see, we did not get a yes or no out of her, but she refuses to simply say, well, yeah, Trump did lose. The polling, I'm not even going to show you. They're all ties. You have, I could say, oh, Loeffler is tied in a poll and up one in another and down one in another. And Ossoff is up two, but then down. These are all what I call, practically speaking, ties. It's going to come down to turnout. It's going to come down to getting the vote out. So you can get involved. You can phone bank. You can text bank. You can go and door knock safely if you are in Georgia. And of course, you can donate and vote if you live in Georgia as well. So let's just consider these ties and get to work. Donald Trump held a huge rally this weekend. Wait, what? Yes, he lost the election. Yes, there's a raging pandemic with record cases and deaths. And yes, Trump's rally in Georgia had a huge crowd, very few masks, and went almost into a third hour of Trump ranting. And Trump is still insisting he won the election. The rally, hilariously, was ostensibly to support the two Republican Senate candidates running in Georgia. Trump devoted about 20 minutes of the nearly 3 hours to them. He's just too self-centered and narcissistic to make it about them. And you've got to see this to believe it. As I mentioned, this was almost Fidel Castro-like in nature. Trump almost went into a third hour in Valdosta, Georgia, ranting about whatever crossed his mind. And the upside is this will end soon. He is only president 6.5 more weeks, my friend. So let's dive directly into it because we have a lot to get to. Trump kicking off the rally with the lie that he won the state of Georgia.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Melania. And I want to say hello, Georgia. We did a great job. You know, we won Georgia, just so you understand.
So Trump, of course, lost Georgia. Joe Biden won Georgia. And as scary as it is that a president still says this a full month after an election, it's scarier that a crowd of thousands is cheering it. That's really the scary part. Hilariously, Trump almost admitted that he lost, but then he backpedaled, realizing he was about to implicitly concede. Take a look at this.
I think they say that if you win Florida and if you win Ohio, in history, you've never lost an election. This has got to be our first time. But the truth is they were right. We've never lost an election. We're winning this election.
And of course, again, the fact that people cheer for these lies is horrifying. Trump wasn't just declaring non-existent victories electorally. He also declared victory in the Christmas war, the war on Christmas, a fake, phony, non-existent war.
Proud, hardworking American patriots. Let me begin by wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. Remember the word? Remember? We started 5 years ago, and I said, you're going to be saying Christmas again, and we say it proudly again, although they'll be trying to take that word again out of the vocabulary. We're not going to let them do that.
That war doesn't exist. Neither did the war on Thanksgiving that he talked about just weeks ago. And then Donald Trump falsely claimed that a lot of people are already vaccinated from COVID. That was weird.
And let me also express our warmest best wishes and love to all of those people and families suffering from the COVID pandemic. Vaccines are on their way at a level that nobody ever thought possible. It would have taken another administration 5 years. It took us 7 months, and they're starting next week, and we're going to start vaccinating, and a lot of people already are vaccinated. It's called you caught it, and you're immune.
Now, of course, nobody's been vaccinated other than the people that were part of the clinical trials for the vaccines. Trump, I guess, meant people who got the virus and recovered are immune. Just as a reminder, we don't know how long immunity from recovered patients lasts. It's unclear whether you are immune longer if you had a more serious case of the virus versus an asymptomatic case, as an example. Very dangerous for Trump to be spreading this type of stuff when we have a raging pandemic. Another incredible moment was Trump telling people to vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in the upcoming Senate runoffs, while in the same breath saying it's completely rigged, which, as we talked about earlier, might actually convince people not to vote.
Where a state has had this prominence on Senate races because they're never together. And this is something that's very important. And you have to get out and you have to vote. You have to make sure you have every vote counted. Every vote has to count. You got to make sure they don't throw away any ballots. You got to make sure that when they collect the ballots and they start bragging about how many ballots they already have, you got to make sure your Secretary of State knows what the hell he's doing. And you got to make sure your governor gets a lot tougher than he's been. He's got to get a lot tougher.
You really should vote, but it's rigged. Trump also attacking the Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, and the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, just out of this world lunacy at this rally. Then Trump pulled out the C word. No, not that one that you might imagine he would use about Kamala Harris. This is communism about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Of course, there's not a single communistic idea in Joe Biden's platform, not a single socialist idea in the campaign, nor in the incoming administration so far.
These people want to go further than socialism. They want to go into a communistic form of government, and I have no doubt about it. Somehow that doesn't suit Georgia too well. That's not.
Now, of course, if you go up to anybody at that rally and you say, yes, good evening, sir or ma'am, which Biden policies are communistic? Ask them what communism even is. It will get very embarrassing very quickly, but they're continuing to harp on this meme, which, by the way, the meme might have won Florida for Trump. It's conceivable that Florida went that way because the socialism meme worked on Cuban Americans in Florida. So I'm not pretending it doesn't work. I'm just telling you it's bonkers. And then a completely Kafkaesque moment when Trump read from printed out sheets of paper that have so-called irrefutable facts about the election. Take a look at this.
Or a rigged election. There's no way it could have happened. You know, it's interesting. I wrote this out, and I had just a few of the facts, which I think, because I want to get onto the presidential. I want to stay on presidential, but I got to get to these two because they're incredible. But listen to this. These are the facts, and each fact is like irrefutable, and it means win. President Trump received, done by one of the most brilliant political people, President Trump received more votes than any previous incumbent president in history, and we lost. And we lost. So we received more votes than anybody in history, any incumbent in history, and we lost, supposedly. We didn't lose. You're gonna see that. No incumbent who received 75% of the total primary vote lost re-election in the history of our country.
Every single one of these, of course, has a but. Trump received more votes than any previous incumbent, but still millions of fewer votes than Joe Biden. An incumbent with 75% of the primary vote has never previously lost, but there really wasn't a Republican primary this year because of the pandemic, and the number is not causal. It's a correlational number in any case. The entire night was like this again and again. And just literally hours of it, Trump still then, after, he ranted for 2 hours and then still hasn't figured out that the election is over. Listen to this one.
And they want to hurt it very badly. And if these two don't get in, or if I don't get in and these don't, we got to get, the best would be all three. Nothing will happen. All three.
Then there's a hilarious moment where Trump is talking about who knows what. at a rally supposedly from Georgia, for Georgia Senate candidates. These are just non sequitur rantings. I don't know what he's talking about here.
I like to say it came from Europe. No, actually, well, specifically, it came from Italy. Italy's saying, what did we do? They'll wage war on American energy, absolutely decimating Georgia's middle class. Your bills will go up. Not a huge energy producer, but Texas. Remember they said, Trump will lose Texas by a lot. I said, wait a minute. I'm in favor of energy. I'm the one that built. We have the greatest energy we've ever had.
That is Trump rallying in support of Georgia Senate candidates. Imagine what he would be doing if he was trying to hurt them rather than help. And then Trump claims to have won Wisconsin, which he lost.
How much? And we knew that before, but it's fake news. They said Wisconsin. A poll came out, Washington Post, ABC, just before the election. I'm going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points. I said, no, I'm going to win Wisconsin. Well, actually, I won Wisconsin. They're trying to say he's a little down, but I actually won.
And then one more bizarre moment, Donald Trump talking about the vegetables he likes.
Blueberries, peppers, squash, and cucumbers. Who does cucumbers around here? Because I like cucumbers. I'm the only one. I like cucumbers.
Absolute last one. Trump wrongly telling people they really need to vote on June 5th. The election is actually on January 5th.
But everything that we've achieved together is on the line on June 5th.
So this is funny. And, to see the delusional, petulant child who still can't admit he lost. But it is really, really dangerous. This is corrosive to democracy. This is a global embarrassment. And this also has the potential to be stochastic terrorism. Trump is railing against poll workers, against the Secretary of State, against governors, against Democrats, against Biden, saying he stole it, they stole it, it's all stolen. This actually can inspire people to violence. And we've already seen people inspired by these rantings to start harassing and going after poll workers in Georgia and even other states. So this has a very real world component. It's not just corrosive to democracy ideologically. It also actually could inspire real violence against people. And again, just a few more weeks of this. Let's take a quick break. We will be back with very much more in just mere moments.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The David Pakman Show depends on your support, and the easiest way is through membership, which includes the world-famous bonus show, as well as commercial-free audio and video streams of the show just for members. Sign up today at joinpakman.com. Coupon code saves you 40%. Vote soon 18.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So as we're getting closer and closer to vaccine approval in the United States, which could come as soon as Thursday or Friday of this week or over the weekend, there are more and more explosive disagreements about what needs to be done right now in terms of the virus. And there was a conversation about this that completely exploded on CNBC a few days ago. Now, for context, if you've been following the absolutely horrifying numbers, cases in the United States have gone off the charts. We've had as many as 200,000 cases per day recently. And it's not just cases that have been increasing. Deaths have also exploded. And now looking like we could have really a sustained period of 3,000 deaths per day for some time. That's essentially a 9/11's worth of deaths every single day. Now, assuming the vaccine is shortly approved, it's going to be a relatively slow rollout. If you look optimistically, we would have the capacity to vaccinate maybe 6 to 8% of the population per month, maybe more if we get a second vaccine, maybe even a third vaccine approved and starting to be supplied. So the point is, no matter what, the next 3 months are going to be a time where we have to be really, really careful. So on CNBC, anchor Andrew Ross Sorkin, who has mostly been in favor of just following what experts say. It's not he's coming up with this stuff. He's mostly been saying, here's what the medical experts are saying. He was on an interview panel with correspondent Rick Santelli, And Rick Santelli has been wildly out of control, loudly and defiantly ridiculing and ignoring varieties of guidelines. And the situation escalated really quickly. Let's take a look.
Yes, no, believe me, I believe in careful. And when I point out governors cheating, it's not for the hypocrisy which exists. It's the fact that I think many of these governors are intelligent people and they love their families, which they've taken out into restaurants. Therefore, there is actually and should be an ongoing debate as to why a parking lot for a big box store like by my house is jam-packed. Not one parking spot open. Why are those people any safer than a restaurant with plexiglass? I just don't get it. And I think there's a million of these questions that could be asked. And I think it's really sad that when we look at the service sector and all the discussions we've had about job losses, that particular dynamic isn't studied more, isn't worked more. We don't put more people in a room and try to figure out ways so that these service sector employees and employers could all come back in a safer way. You can't tell me that shutting down, which is the easiest answer, is necessarily the only answer.
So now here so far, although Rick and I would come to different conclusions, I don't disagree with Rick about what he's saying. There are many guidelines, particularly when you look between states, but also within states, that aren't coherent. He says, why is it safe to jam pack a big box store, but a small restaurant can't be open? That's a great question. And in fact, it doesn't appear to be safe to jam pack the big box store. In many states where people aren't wearing masks, especially, big box stores are exactly where a lot of the contagion is happening. Rick is inadvertently getting to an important point, which is it's not that open all restaurants, it's the big box stores aren't actually safe. Back in early November, officials in El Paso, Texas found a huge number of cases were being transmitted at big box stores in El Paso, including Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's. So the problem is Rick saying open everything because the big box stores are open. It seems really what we need is the big box stores need to dramatically reduce capacity. So then Andrew Ross Sorkin jumps in and this gets ugly pretty quickly.
Rick, I just as a public health and public service announcement for the audience, the difference between a big box retailer.
Who is this?
Hold on. The difference between it's Andrew.
Who else?
The difference between a big box retailer. Hold on. The difference between a big box retailer and a restaurant, or frankly, even a church, are so different. It's unbelievable. Going into a big box retailer,
I disagree.
You're wearing a mask.
You can have your thoughts, and I can have mine.
You're required to wear a mask.
I disagree.
It's science. I'm sorry. It's science. If you're wearing a mask, it's a different story.
500 people in a Lowe's aren't any safer than 150 people in a restaurant that holds 600. I don't believe it. Sorry. Don't believe it. And I live in an area where there's a lot of restaurants that have fought back and they don't have any problems. And they're open.
Okay. You don't have to believe it, but let me just say this. You're doing a disservice to the viewer because the viewers need to understand it.
You are doing a disservice to the viewer. You are. You are.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would like to keep our viewers as healthy as humanly possible. The idea of packing people into restaurants.
I think our viewers are smart enough to make part of those decisions on their own.
So it quickly became, no, you are, but what am I? And now Rick actually says something interesting. Our viewers are smart enough to decide on their own. That is just not true. I hate it that it's not true. Check out my video, viral video from, what was it, a year or so ago? We have to accept that a lot of people are stupid. Have you seen the Trump rallies where rally goers are asked, why aren't you wearing a mask? And the answers range from the virus doesn't exist, it's a fake news conspiracy, masks do nothing, I'm protected by Jesus because I prayed. The problem is you need the guidelines to be stricter than what most people would need because there's people that will disregard them completely. You say outdoor is fine without masks, as was said earlier in the pandemic. Then you see hundreds of people packing narrow hiking trails in California. They've found the one way to make outdoor not safe. So now you need to say, well, you need masks outdoors as well. You got to close the hiking trails. People aren't smart enough. That's an unfortunate thing. Let's see the last bit of this.
I don't think that I'm much smarter than all the viewers like some people do.
Can I get in here, please, and get back to the jobs report?
How's that working out for you, Rick? How's it all working out for you? I mean, look at the numbers, Rick.
It's working out fine.
I think the numbers, Rick, belie Rick, the numbers show that the
I
idea of
understand
let
it's
it
a
rip has not
horrible
worked all
thing,
that well.
and people are getting sick and dying. I
not worked all that
understand
well,
it.
Rick.
I just think
I
the way we
I
deal
think
with
if we
it
spent
isn't
the rest of
necessarily
the show
optimal.
talking about this.
So, of course, the way we've dealt with this hasn't been optimal. That's absolutely true. No coordinated federal response going back 10 months now. Disinformation coming out of the White House, a vector of disinformation, replacing, we could pick anything, replacing Dr. Anthony Fauci with a radiologist for months, as Donald Trump did, suggesting maybe you inject bleach and hit the body with a disinfectant. But part of the reason we need to be fighting uphill is because of people like Rick Santelli. So I think that, listen, I've said before, you look at states with high and low mask usage, at least on paper, and sometimes you don't see dramatic differences in contagion. What explains that? Well, you've got to dig deeper. Maybe the state with the high mask usage on paper, people are having more indoor gatherings because it's a cold state. And so you don't have people abiding by only hanging out outdoors. I get that there are still many questions we don't understand. You look at Latin American countries, on paper, some of the strictest guidelines and even actual lockdowns. And they have some incredible rates of contagion. Well, when you dig into it, you realize on paper, the guidelines are strict. Nobody's abiding by them. I get it. But we can't pretend that the problem is merely that all of the scientists are wrong and have no idea what's going on. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that escalated very, very quickly. Lara Trump, is it Lara or Lara? Lara Trump is Donald Trump's daughter-in-law. She's the wife of Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. And she's been increasingly erratic and cartoonishly histrionic in her appearances on a bunch of different right-wing media programs lately. She appeared over the weekend on a few shows. In this first clip I'm going to play for you, she insists that the election is not over. Don't you dare think Joe Biden will be sworn in on January 20th, which, of course, he will be sworn in on January 20th. Because Donald Trump stops being president on January 20th at noon. But she says, don't you dare think that.
We're fighting all the way to the end. I want to make it very clear to the American people, this is not over. So don't for a second think that Joe Biden is going to be sworn in on January 20th.
Joe Biden, of course, will be sworn in on January 20th. And what she means by the American people shouldn't think it's over is their donors shouldn't think it's over because they should keep donating money, 50% of which Trump is using not to file recounts or legal challenges, but to pay off his own campaign debt. That's what she really means by that. Lara Trump also appeared on Judge Jeanine Pirro's outrageous propaganda show on Fox News. And when Lara Trump brings up all the court filings, Jeanine actually seems to be like 2% connected to reality and points out that the courts aren't being moved by these court filings. And of course they're not, because the court filings are bogus. Check out that moment from the interview.
State legislatures in so many states, they have held hearings in several states where we've been able to bring witnesses forward to tell their own testimony about what they saw, what happened to them. And I mean, if you hear some of these, it's not, but you know what? The Constitution.
Judge Jeanine is correct. And of course, with Rudy Giuliani now positive for COVID, it's unclear whether he's even going to be able to continue doing these court filings, which are bogus anyway. On that same episode of Judge Jeanine Pirro's Weekend Propaganda Hour, Lara Trump casually says Trump won Georgia and also won the election in a landslide. And Jeanine Pirro is a statue. She doesn't move. If you're watching, you will notice Jeanine Pirro does not even move as Lara Trump says this.
We know Donald Trump won the state of Georgia. We know he won this election in a landslide, and we're going to prove that very, very soon.
How much of their own base do you think believes that at this point? Because remember that a couple of weeks ago, it's actually crazy. It's been almost a month now. It's been more than a month since the election, about a month since this poll. There was a poll that showed 60% of Trump voters believed that Rudy's hearings and lawsuits and stuff like that would overturn the election results and lead to Donald Trump getting a second term starting in just about a month. I have to imagine that that number has declined since the hearings clearly have gone nowhere, right? Like it could, I'm guessing maybe 40% of Trump voters now believe that this is actually going to work. It must be declining, although I'd love to see new data on it. And then this next moment, is really sort of a keen insight into the way that Donald Trump does business. It's unintentional genius, I would call it. Lara Trump sort of says the quiet part out loud. She says, listen, Trump did a favor to Georgia Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Trump helped Brian Kemp become governor. And now Brian Kemp needs to do Donald Trump a favor, which is code for figure out a way to overturn the results, even though Joe Biden won. This is how they operate. Who cares if it's illegal? Kemp owes Trump a favor. Don't you guys understand?
You're right, Janine. Governor Kemp owes his position as governor, quite frankly, to Donald Trump. So, it would be nice if he, reciprocated in some way, not just to make sure that this goes the way that we know it went for the president, but for the American people. I mean, he owes it to all of us to do the right thing here.
That is really telling. That you're not really supposed to say that out loud, but that is what it means to have businessman Trump as president. It's all favors, even if they're illegal. And of course, politics is favors and politics is influence peddling in a sense. I'm not naive to that, but it comes down to what degree and is it legal? Trump lost an election and the favors he wants include governors finding illegal ways to disenfranchise the people that voted for Joe Biden and gave Joe Biden a victory in those states. So this is all, as I've been referring to it, kind of the last big scam. It's the last big con. Keep saying they won, keep the base engaged in order to keep raising money, half of which isn't actually used for what they claim it's being used for. Half is used to pay Donald Trump's campaign debt. With Rudy now having COVID and the official electoral vote happening in just a week, what is it that people are even donating to here? I have no idea. But these are really horrible people at their core. And as I've said before, they deserve to never work again. And the opposite may happen. Lara Trump reportedly considering running for Senate in North Carolina. So the Trumps may never go away, but let's table that discussion until it becomes a reality. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. You know, one of the blessings and simultaneously curses that we've seen over the last 4 months is that the audience has exploded in size. That's a really great thing from the standpoint of reaching more people, but it has also brought in all sorts of new haters, trolls, Trumpists, and tools of the right-wing movement that are regularly trolling me. And sometimes the critiques are just really lame. Here's a guy who could come up with nothing more creative to say than my mouth is physically large. He said, my mouth is big. Listen to this.
Hello, I have a very quick question for you, Pakman. Why is your mouth so wide? Like, I'm not here to judge. I'm not going to say, like, I'm the most perfect-looking guy, but, you know, it's a very interesting question why your mouth is at least, 200 yards long. You can convert that into metric if you want to. I won't. I'd really appreciate it if you got to my question as soon as possible, and thank you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer, to answer seriously, I think it's just genetics, right? I mean, I assume I am the genetics of my parents, but this is the type of stuff that is, I mean, it's daily stuff like this. There's another guy obsessed with the fact that I use my hands when I talk. That's the big critique of the show. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anybody does. I'm using my hands when I talk. So I'm hoping that a lot of these folks, I think they may be on a come down in a sense as they realize that Joe Biden's going to be president. And so they still want to keep calling in and attacking and engaging. But there's no factual basis on which to engage with me because Biden won and they're furious and all of that. So instead, they're focusing on stuff like this. It's sad to see, but unfortunately, it's very, very common. And we, to some degree, I believe we'll have to continue dealing with it. We have a fantastic bonus show for you today. In California, there is growing anger about stay-at-home orders. And we are starting to hear from sheriffs who say they will not be enforcing the stay-at-home orders. And I have a lot to talk about regarding this. We also now are seeing lab-grown meat go on sale for the first time. We've been covering lab-grown meat for a decade. from when it was $300,000 for an ounce. And we said the price will come down. This will be a thing in our lifetimes. No-kill lab-grown meat is now going on sale for the first time. We will talk about it. And also, very interesting revelations about my accent. I have friends from the South who say I have a New York accent. Obviously, I don't. I think a lot of us Northerners sound the same to them. I have people who write in and say, oh, David, you're based in Boston. I can hear your Boston accent. I've never believed I had a Boston accent. I didn't grow up in Boston. And we finally have taken a dialect test. And the revelations are explosive. I hope that they don't end the show because they are controversial, but we will discuss all of that and more on today's bonus show. Get instant access by becoming a member at joinpakman.com. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. SteadyMD lets you maintain a meaningful, long-lasting relationship with a primary care physician who you can meet with anytime over phone or video chat. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. Visit SteadyMD.com/Pakman to get started.